Welcome to Midlife Matters. I'm Marie, and each week I'm joined by my friends Julie and Mindy to talk about all the topics keeping women in the middle years up at night. This is that time of year when we focus on thankfulness. The month of November is full of ways we should be counting our blessings. But what do we do when we don't feel thankful? Today we're sharing times that we've struggled to be grateful. We're getting honest about things that steal our joy. We're also talking about things we can all do to move ourselves into a more grateful state of mind. Let's get started. Hi, Mindy.
Hey, Marie.
Hi, Julie.
Hey, Marie.
I'm really excited to see you guys, and it is a holiday week for us. Yay, tomorrow's Thanksgiving.
Yes, are you ready?
Well, I'm never ready, but I will participate no matter what.
Good answer.
I'm excited.
Well, today we're going to be talking about thankfulness and gratitude. Why is it important? What if we don't feel thankful? Maybe we're going through a tough time. And we hear a lot about being thankful at this time of year, but what does that really mean? So why do you guys think it's important to be thankful?
Being grateful or thankful affirms that there's something good in our life and in the world. And it acknowledges my belief that all good things come from God. You know, if you say thank you for something, you are talking to someone. You're recognizing that someone is responsible for the good that you're being grateful for. So I think it can be other people as well, you know, when we express gratitude to other people, but it's recognizing that the good is coming from outside of ourselves. And that reflects our dependence on someone else, either another person or ultimately God.
Right. I think it's easy to get into a negative mindset if you are not intentionally looking for the good that's happening in your life. Thankfulness or gratitude, it really is an intentional action. It's not just an attitude, but it's something that you do. So when I looked up the definition of gratitude, it's the readiness to show appreciation for and return kindness. So that perceives that something good has happened to you and you're wanting to then respond. And like Julie said, as a Christian, that attitude comes from the Lord as he's done so much for me. But also I feel like you look around and there's a lot of negative influences in our world. You know, we deal with constant criticism, slights, people cutting us off while we're driving. I think when you're in an attitude of thankfulness and gratitude, it helps other people that you're around be in that same type of attitude.
Yeah, it's kind of contagious.
It is.
Yeah. I was thinking that it's important for me to be thankful because I can tend to get sidetracked by all the things that are, in quotes, wrong in my life. And being thankful recenters me. It's so much easier for me to focus on the negative than the positive. And being thankful redirects me back to the positive. Which kind of leads into our second question, which I bet you can guess what my answer is. Would you describe yourself as a glass half full or half empty type of person? It's terrible, but I know I'm a glass half empty. But it's so weird because when I talk to other people, and you tell me if this is true, but I feel like when I talk to other people, I can be very glass full. Like I can see all the positives about their situation and encourage them. But when it comes to my own situation, the positives leave me.
That's definitely true. You know, you always find something to encourage me about, or you see the good in it. Like, oh, it's really not this bad, that bad.
It's so weird that for myself, I'm kind of glass half empty, but for other people, I'm more than willing to see the good. What about for you guys? How do you describe yourselves?
I think I'm a glass half empty person too. And I feel a little guilty saying that because I do recognize how much I have to be grateful for, but I like to just call myself a realist.
That's code for negative.
That sounds so much nicer.
And who can argue with that?
Right. These are the facts. This is the way it is.
Now, Mindy, I'm going to take a wild guess and say that you're glass half full.
You are correct. I'm a glass half full, and not everyone in my house is a glass half full. So it's nice, in a family, and you guys too, like the dynamics of your family, how you work, because there are different personalities. And it's funny, Marie, because both the first and second questions that we've just talked about, I keep thinking about how you're a 1 on the Enneagram. And my husband is a 1. And so there are a lot of similar traits, like you talked about, you can see and probably fix everybody else's situation.
I know exactly what they should do.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that that's kind of funny.
All right. Well, leading right along with that question, let's talk about whether being thankful comes easy to you. I say, does it come easily to anybody?
Yeah, I definitely think some people have a more grateful disposition than others. And it doesn't come easily for me, but thankfully, notice I said thankfully, it is something that can be cultivated and worked on. And, for me, when I'm not being grateful, then I know I've become focused on something that I'm allowing to blind me to all that I have that's good. Like I still know it's there, but I'm not focusing on it. I'm not focusing on the good. And I have to, like you said, be intentional about looking at those things and noticing those things. And I do think I've gotten more grateful as I've gotten older.
All right. Well, let's get started with a hard question, one that makes us all feel uncomfortable, but is always interesting for listeners. Describe a time in your life when you had a hard time being thankful, and how has your perspective changed now? Who wants to go first on this?
Without explaining everything, if anybody's listened to the podcast, you can kind of remember back when I've talked about certain things. But during periods or seasons in life where I've experienced loss, grief, or moved away from the people that I love. So that's happened, especially with the moving, quite often. And it is really a difficult time to just wake up and just be chipper about how things are going. Because I may not be so happy about it. But I think that as I've gotten older, I've been through enough seasons that I realize it won't last forever. I remember times where I was in this season before, and I remember times where I came out of it. And so I think just knowing that it's not going to last forever is really helpful. And there's actually a particular verse that truly helped me. I memorized it because I thought it was an interesting verse, that how the Lord put the word thanksgiving right in the middle of it. So Philippians 4:6-7 says, "Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus." I have clung to that verse. And I always thought it odd that Thanksgiving was in the middle of a verse that talked about not being anxious or fearful, encouraging us to pray. And the word petition, pray often, over and over and over until it's done. And so that is a practice that I've had to learn, and I keep going back to in those seasons that are difficult.
Yeah. I think moving can sometimes be a time where we have a hard time being thankful, or having other people move. So I think just separation from loved ones can make us not feel very thankful. So about a year after our oldest was born, we moved from Maryland back to New York State to be near my family. I thought, wow, this is great. My kids are going to grow up around their grandparents. This is just wonderful. And then my 3 younger siblings, they'd all settled in Tennessee, and my parents were only about 50, and they decided they want a new adventure, and they were going to move to Tennessee and leave us behind. That wasn't really how they put it, but that's certainly how it sounded to me.
Right.
And I was mad. I was bitter. I was resentful. I swore I was never going to talk to my parents again. How could they dare do this? Not only was I betrayed by them leaving me, but now they were leaving their grandchildren, which, who does that? I just could not get behind the idea. And it all happened so quickly. It was like they told me, and within 2 weeks, my dad had already moved down here to start his new job. So there was no lead time. It was just, boom, we're moving. And there it was. I remember we celebrated my son's 2nd birthday, and my dad was leaving the next day for Tennessee. And it just was such a wet blanket over the whole birthday. Like, it was just, I was heartbroken over it.
Mm.
And I had already moved once for them. Like, what was I going to do? Spend my whole life going around the country trying to be near family? But on the other hand, did I really want to drive 12 hours every time I wanted to see my parents or my siblings? Because now my entire family lived in Tennessee. Did I want my kids to grow up not knowing their cousins? And it just felt so hard. But on the other hand, I had a lot to be thankful for. You know, like we were healthy. My husband had a job. We had 2 beautiful children. We were happy where we lived. Like we were perfectly happy where we lived. And I just really struggled with that feeling of, you know, we can travel down there. My parents are young and can be involved. Like there was just a lot of shoulds. But the overriding thing was I'm mad and bitter and I hate this situation.
Right.
So I just that was a really hard time to be thankful. Now, we did end up moving about 2 years later. My husband ended up transferring to Tennessee because we were looking to do that. It wasn't just like a freak thing. No, we kept on applying for jobs and he did transfer to Tennessee and we decided to move one more time. And it has worked out, but it took me even those 2 years when I would come to visit my parents. Oh, I would just be so mad. It was like so much mad inside. It was really hard to enjoy even our visits because I just was so resentful of it. But we did move. And now in hindsight, I can see that God has done things here in Tennessee that we wouldn't have imagined for ourselves. And he has blessed us here. And I have been happy to have my kids near my parents. A few years later, my husband's parents moved to this area, so my kids have been blessed to grow up with both sides of grandparents, and they've been blessed to know their aunts and uncles and their cousins. So it did work out, but if someone had told me when I was moving from Maryland to New York State that that's what I was going to go through, I would have said, forget that. But you know what I'm saying? So that was a hard time. It was a hard time for me to be thankful. There was only one thing really wrong, but it felt like a really big thing.
Right.
Did you fake it? Like, were you able to find things you were grateful for during that time, or was it only later?
Oh, no. I mean, I felt like it would go in waves. You know, like I could be fine for a while and then I would not be fine. And then I would be fine again for a while. And then I would hear of them all getting together on New Year's Day. And I'd be like, and I'm stuck up here. You know, like it was very emotional up and down. I think that's how it is in those seasons. Like we're not just miserable 24/7, but it's like, okay, we crawl back out and then we slide back down. It's like a slide. We crawl back up and then we slide back down.
Yeah.
I can see now how God worked it for our good, but it was really hard to be thankful during those years.
Yeah. Well, you can guess that that's my similar story. That I'm kind of living right in the middle of that right now. And, you know, I had a really, really hard time being thankful when my daughter and her husband moved so far away from us. And now they have a child. So I have a grandchild that's very, very far away. And I really don't want to beat this topic to death. You know, I've talked about this before, but I realized that I was just hyper focused on the negatives of that situation. And I wasn't able to see any of the other good things that I had in my life and really wasn't enjoying any of those things and was just very, you know, I said, oh, I'm grateful for them, but I really, you know, if you can't show gratitude, are you really grateful? You know, God just had to change me on that from the inside out. And it happened really slowly. And I really can't explain it, but I do think that turning 50 had something to do with it. It's really hard to focus on your own mortality before 50, unless you've been ill maybe, or, you know, had a bad diagnosis. But it's just something that starts to creep into your thinking, not in a morbid way. Like I'm not sitting around thinking, I only have this many years to live. It's not that. But you really can see that there is an end. This is probably not going to be advice that could help young people because I don't think you can make yourself think that way when you're in your 30s. You just can't, you know, you just think you have forever. And it just kind of helped put things in perspective. Life is short and I don't want to spend the rest of my time being this way. And I don't want to be remembered this way.
No, I appreciate you saying that, Julie, because I guess listeners should hear that. And Mindy, you've alluded to this too, that when we're going through a season of unthankfulness, it can last a long time and it's a slow change. I mean, I remember if I didn't burn all my journals periodically, I could go back and look at them, but I don't want people to find them when I die. But I could see, like my thought process at the beginning to the middle to the end. But I remember, and this has happened so many times in my life, I will wrestle with God for a really long time. I'll throw everything I have at it. Mm-hmm. And then it's like you wear yourself out.
Right.
Mm-hmm. I start to accept the situation. I start to resign myself to whatever it is. I decide to move forward, and that is when God moves. But for some reason, you can't just make yourself get there. I can even tell myself, okay, this is what I need to do. I need to resign myself. But I know that I'm not really resigning myself. So it does take the time. And so it was over those course of those couple years, I finally did resign myself to the fact that I was just going to have not any family. It seemed like as soon as I did that, Steve comes home and says, oh, someone contacted me from Tennessee. And it's like, what? But so many times but you can't fake that. Like you can't fake yourself getting there.
That's so true. Like I would say, I'm going to change. I'm going to be different. And I just wasn't. I just wasn't thankful. And I was bitter and angry over it. And I really don't know how to explain how it happened other than praying that God would change me. I guess being willing to, knowing that you don't want to be this way. Please help me out of it.
Mm-hmm. And it's a supernatural change because you already tried changing it yourself, changing the way you were thinking about it so many times on your own. Right. Sometimes we just can't change it on our own.
And now I can hardly conjure up those feelings I felt before,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, there are times when it does make me sad, like holidays and things like that, but it's not the...
Mm-hmm. It doesn't just send you to your room to cry for 2 hours and then you're useless. Yeah, no. And I can relate to that. Like I would just wait for my kids to go down for their nap so that I could just be sad. That's a terrible way to live, but I needed to be sad about it. And you can't all the time be sad in front of your family members. So you save it for like when you could be alone.
Yeah, when you get in your car, that's when I would get in my car and just drive around and cry.
Yeah.
Right.
Because I didn't want, even though they knew I was sad, I just didn't want it to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They just couldn't be around that all the time,
Right.
Yeah. I know, like sometimes the situation just doesn't change, like Julie, your situation's not changed, but you have changed. I feel that way even with Abby living in Tennessee, I live here. There were certain times that when I would go visit her and come home, it's a 12-hour trip home, I would see the Pennsylvania sign, burst into tears, and cry the next 2.5 hours home.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was so angry about being that far away from her. It wasn't Pennsylvania. It's the fact that Abby wasn't in it.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I just went and visited her a couple of weeks ago. When I saw the Pennsylvania sign, I got excited. And I was like, what is that? Like,
yeah.
Abby still lives in Tennessee, but I'm not bursting into tears at the sight of the Pennsylvania state line.
And that's how you know that you're changing.
Yeah.
Right.
You can't fake that.
No.
Right.
And it's slow. I mean, you've lived there almost 2 years you've lived there a little over a year, but still it's a slow change and you can't make yourself do it.
No,
right.
Not at all.
In the world, we're always going to live in the tension between gratitude and grief. Like there's not a time when we're not going to have one or the other. I mean, we are. Yeah. And I don't think we like to think of it that way. It's like, I'm happy now. And it's just going to stay that way. The story that I just related, I feel like I was living more on the wrong side, on the what's wrong with life. And I think this is a place where we probably need to live more down the middle, like taking what's wrong, taking that to God. And that's prayer. Like, God, these are the things that I'd like for you to make right. These are the things that are wrong, but we may just have to also accept them. And then there's always going to be something to celebrate and be grateful for. And we just have to live in both worlds. There's a tension there,
Yeah. Because even when you get maybe your answer to your prayer, like say when I moved here, there still were things about my move that I was not thankful about. Yes,
Right.
I was thankful to be near family. I was not thankful to not be near my friends. I was
Right.
not thankful to live in a new area and have to learn all new things. I was not thankful to have left the house that I loved to live in a house that I didn't love. There's always something to be thankful for, and there's always something to not that we're struggling to be thankful for.
Right. Well, and then
we don't
just
ever
choosing-
just achieve this level of where it's all good, you know?
Right.
I have to choose to see the good, choose to talk about the good, because it's so easy to talk about things that are wrong and negative, and that is actually very socially acceptable. But hey, let's talk about the things that are good. Let's try to focus on the things that are good. And I noticed that my attitude, again, we talked about our attitudes being contagious to the people in our homes. When we're constantly talking about the things that are wrong, I noticed when my kids were little, my kids would come home and tell me all the bad things that happened at school. And I just would think, oh, their teachers are horrible, their friends are horrible, their classes are horrible. Well, then you go into their classroom for a party and you see they have all these great friends and their teacher is fabulous. And you're like, what in the world? And so we had to start a rule that they had to tell me 3 good things that happened every day at school. So I still do this sometimes. I'll notice if there's like a lot of complaining going on, I say, tell me 3 good things that happen, and they roll their eyes because they know, like, that's the mom question. I want 3 good things.
Right.
Because, you know, and I'm like, unfortunately, they learned it from me. Not the good things, but the bad things.
Well, I just think also it's human nature. I don't even think they need to learn that from somebody. I think we are just, sin has just programmed us to focus on the negative.
Right, right.
Well, what are some of those attitudes that can rob us of our thankfulness?
Kind of what you just said, Marie. I think entitlement can make us ungrateful because really when we're focusing on the negative, it's kind of a different way of saying, well, we expect everything to be good. You know, like good is what is expected. And then if it's not good, we're just trying to get it back where it's supposed to be.
Right.
You know, that it kind of says something about our thinking that we expect things to go well, we expect them to go our way. And some of that, you know, Mindy, is like what you've talked about before, that myth of kind of, oh, I've done everything right. I'm doing everything, God, like, I'm
So
trying to live for
it.
you and I deserve it. And it's not going that way. So that's what we focus on.
The idea that I deserve it, I've earned it. Also, I thought about things that we do that can keep us from being thankful is when we procrastinate or when we don't work hard to get the work done. Like I've noticed, and I won't talk about which child, but one of my children who unfortunately is similar to me will really wait until the last minute. And then they cause themselves a lot of stress because they haven't done that project on time. They didn't think about, you know, doing this ahead of time, and therefore they don't have what they need. So I think even sometimes we can kind of shoot ourselves in the foot, you know, by not spending the proper amount of time planning, preparing for what we actually need to do. Like when dinner time comes around, have I thought about it 5 minutes before? Or should I maybe thought about it like that morning? And dinner can be so much more enjoyable if I have planned on it.
For sure.
Also looking at other people, unfortunately, this is so sad, but we all do it. And looking at other people and thinking, that's what I should have. Why don't I have that? Or why did they get the thing that I thought I should have gotten? You just pinpoint on a particular thing. Like you don't see their family structure. You don't see all the things that are going on. You don't see this view that only the Lord has, but you just think they have it. I don't have it. I want it, you know, and it's just a very selfish way to look at the world.
Yeah, I think that comparison is probably the biggest way that we erode gratitude. Like I can be perfectly happy with a choice I've made or something I have, and then I see someone who has something bigger or better, or maybe even it's just different. And I all of a sudden doubt my choices. It steals my joy. It makes us so unhappy to always be looking around because, you know, we never compare ourselves to somebody who maybe has less. We only compare ourselves to somebody that has more.
Right.
Yeah, we use other people as reference points all the time. And unfortunately, we're really bad at picking those people to compare ourselves to because we always pick the comparison that's the harshest toward us. Like we pick the person who's doing the very best at whatever we're thinking of. And, I think those extreme cases kind of make us look like we're not doing so well or we have so little. And I think, once again, social media makes that even easier to do. What about pride? C.S. Lewis said that pride gets no pleasure out of having something, only having more than someone else.
Oh, interesting.
And when we're living in pride, we just lose all pleasure when we see others who are more successful, more intelligent, more beautiful. So we're not really enjoying the things for what they are, only relative to others. So that makes gratitude almost impossible. That's just kind of a black hole to compare.
Right.
Because it's never going to be enough.
Yeah. You're never going to add up.
Right.
And there's always going to be somebody that has more or.
Right.
What is something in your life that you're practicing being thankful for right now? November 2019. What are you practicing being thankful for?
Well, since it's the day before Thanksgiving, I will confess here, I've mentioned before that Thanksgiving is my least favorite holiday, which naturally makes me sound
like a big Scrooge.
Yeah. And I've always defended my position by saying, it's not that I'm not thankful. It's just I'm kind of rejecting the stereotypical Thanksgiving celebrations. The huge meal with all the family coming home, parents, grandparents, delicious meal, big, long dining room table. And our family just doesn't look like that anymore. And I have resented it. And I've become very cynical about the holiday. And I just need to apologize to my family here and now because I've really been convicted about it, that what I'm saying really does reflect ingratitude. I can say, I'm grateful, but I hate this holiday. Those two just don't mesh. So I've been letting comparison keep me from being grateful for what I do have. I think it's okay for me to recognize that this makes me a little sad or I'm a little disappointed in the way things are, but that doesn't exempt me from being grateful. So I am going to have a great Thanksgiving this year, and I am going to enjoy, the traditions that we have. I've talked about maybe changing traditions,
right?
Just because they're kind of painful, but traditions are going to change anyway as the people in your family change, and we may be traveling more for Thanksgiving. I don't know, but this year we're home. We're having turkey. We're having all the tradition. We're back on the traditional Thanksgiving.
Wow. Okay.
That's great, Julie. Yes. And you heard it here on Midlife Matters. I mean, I think sometimes saying it out loud holds us accountable. Yeah.
I love that, Julie. This really made me laugh because I had something happen the other day. And you know how your kids kind of take turns with getting your attention, your focus? It's like whoever needs it gets it. So I feel like Abby's thriving. She was really my focus last year. This year, she's doing great. She's not my total focus right now. But my son Grant is a senior in high school. Like, it's been very busy. He's a football player. Football season actually just ended on Friday night. And we've spent like the whole summer at football camps. Every Friday night we've been at his football games. Most of the time I spend kind of frustrated, like he's not doing what I think he should do academically or preparing for college or thinking about the future. And I find it easier to focus on being frustrated at Grant because when football ended Friday night, Saturday, I'm sitting there and all of a sudden it hit me. It's over. Like high school football for my son is over. And so often I just would rather feel frustrated at him than realize I'm sad. I'm actually, this season, there's endings happening all through this year. And that's just how senior year is. It's the finishing of something. It's the last.
The last whatever, yeah.
Yes. And so as much as I do want to help him, step into the next stage of life well, I want to be thankful for the time right now and not spend it being frustrated with him because he doesn't do everything at the time I think he should do it. On Saturday, when that sadness kind of hit, and I thought, we're gonna, we'll have only 2 children left in the home. I went downstairs. I knew Grant was playing the Xbox. I went downstairs and I just hugged him. And I'm not a crier, but he looked up at me and he saw my eyes were teary and he was like, "What's wrong, Mom?" And he took his headphones off and he stood up and my big guy just hugged me for a while. And I said, "Grant, I'm just sad. I'm going to really miss you next year. And I can't believe football's over. I love watching you play. I love sitting on the sidelines and it's done."
I'm starting to cry.
So I'm like, it's slipping. It's just slipping through my fingers. I need to focus on being thankful for him in this time. And as much as he frustrates me in maybe other areas, I need to just kind of let those go sometimes.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting that you realized that maybe frustration was an easier emotion for you to deal with than sadness.
Yes. I'd rather be angry than cry.
But the sadness could lead to gratitude quicker than frustration.
It's true, Julie. It's true.
I thought of another time that we need to practice being thankful is maybe when we get an outcome that's maybe good or okay, but it's not what we thought. Mm-hmm. It's not what we envisioned or hoped for. And I'd really like to share this story. I actually heard it on another podcast this week. It's called The Happiness Lab. This story centered around the figure skater Michelle Kwan. Do y'all remember her?
Oh, yeah.
I do vaguely, yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, she's one of the most decorated figure skaters in history, and she was favored to win the gold in it was Nagano, Japan Olympics. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure what year it was, but she skated a flawless performance, came off the ice thinking she had the gold, and then the next competitor kind of surprised everybody, and she won the gold, and Michelle got silver. A lot of people were coming up to her and saying, "Oh, what a bummer you didn't win the gold," but she really looked at it as, I did win. I won a silver medal. She was recognized at the Olympic level for her achievement. She was disappointed, but standing up there on the podium, she wasn't devastated or in agony. Apparently, this is not the typical case for most silver medalists. And they had a scientist on there who had studied silver medalists. Silver medalists are often negatively affected for the rest of their life for their perceived loss. And it said that silver medalists even die younger. On the podium, sometimes they refuse to wear their medals or they throw them over their backs. They're crying or they just have really bad expressions on their face. Mm-hmm. The scientist that was studying this behavior said they were letting their imagined reality, like winning the gold, poison the actually really great thing that had happened, winning the silver medal. And they stand there looking enviously at the one person in the world that was better than them. And that kind of goes back to what I said earlier about comparing yourselves. Like, we choose really bad reference points. Like, they're looking to compare themselves at the one and only person in the world that could do this better than them. Mm-hmm. But ironically, the bronze medalist doesn't see it that way at all. They typically look down at all the other competitors who fell short of medaling. And they're just thinking, wow, I'm grateful to be up here at all. Like, I got a medal. Because, had I been a second slower or whatever, I'd be down there with all of them.
That's true.
But I am on the podium, and they are usually just beaming and so thankful to be there. They kind of have the count your blessings, mentality, way of thinking. So I just thought that was a really interesting story that Michelle Kwan and other people that are happy people often have the ability to reframe things in a way that sustains their happiness. Like, they can reframe their disappointments into positives. And when the interviewer asked her, like, how could you do that? She said, first of all, she was really internally motivated to do her best. Like, I just wanted to skate my best. And I did that. And I really wasn't striving for other people to do poorly or me to do better than them. It was all about her personal best. And she really loved the journey, like the hard work, the early morning practices, the, giving up your life to do this. Like, that was worth it for her. It wasn't all about the end goal. She said, I remember what a privilege it was to skate on Olympic ice. And she teared up skating across those rings on the ice. And those are the things she focuses on, not winning the gold.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And I thought, I could totally relate to that. I would probably be so upset thinking, but it could have been me. I was that close. Like, and totally not seeing your accomplishment. Like, what a tremendous accomplishment she has.
Right. It's easy for us to sit in the crowd that hasn't won a medal at all and throw those silver medalists under the bus and say, oh, that's ridiculous. If I got silver, I'd just be happy to even be up there. But honestly, how many times do we do that in our own life? Like, it's all about expectations, really, or maybe unrealistic expectations. I don't know, but it doesn't meet what we wanted. And so we can't even be happy with the good that it is.
Mm-hmm. Well, and like it said, like the scientist said, it's letting your imagined reality steal or poison what is really going on, like the good thing that you have. And I think that is really interesting because I think we imagine ourselves getting this thing that we want or being in this situation almost to the point like we feel like we already have it. Mm-hmm. And then when we don't, we really have something to complain about or to gripe about.
Right.
You know?
Well, let's talk about some of the ways that you can move yourself into a more grateful state of mind. And I just really typed that into Google, like how to be thankful when you don't feel like it. And Real Simple had a cute article, and it starts out, don't worry, you're not the only one who feels like she's faking it. So how do you dig deep and show true gratitude during November? Follow this advice. Thought this was kind of cute. They start out by saying, by the day before Thanksgiving, giving thanks can start to feel like a command performance rather than a genuine act. Your social media feed is all gratitude all the time, hashtag 30 days of thanks, and you're up to your googly eyeballs in turkey-themed craft projects. It's okay to feel jaded. You can't turn on gratitude just because it's Thanksgiving. Gratitude happens in quiet pauses and moments, not when you have a giant to-do list and you're racing around. So isn't that so true? Like how this is a story of my life. I'm racing around to prepare Thanksgiving, and someone in my family says, "Just be thankful."
I'm gonna like slap them. I'll give you something to be thankful about.
I'll be thankful when you're cooking Thanksgiving dinner.
That's right.
It's kind of like that story in the Bible with Mary and Martha. I've never really understood that story. Like when Jesus says, "Oh, Mary's doing what's important," I was like, "Well, people want to eat."
I know. I love how
that
Martha,
is necessary too. Like how do you get both?
Right. Yeah.
So we're not supposed to like command Jesus to tell her to help me.
Right. And thankfulness is not about finding new forms of positivity in life, but rather about reorienting yourselves around the things that you should already be grateful for, and not just the big obvious ones, your job, your health, ho-hum, we're sick of listing off those, but the small things too. Like this guy said that about 12 years ago, I bought a parking spot in Brooklyn. It was one of the most extravagant things my wife and I have ever bought ourselves. But every time I pull into spot 18, I always say to myself internally, how grateful I am. You know, like we can be grateful for so many things that go beyond the basics, which we are all thankful for. But I think when we try to beat ourselves up by saying, well, look, I have a home, I have a job. Yes, we are. But sometimes looking for those littler things inspire even more gratitude for us.
Yeah, that makes me think of Ann Voskamp's book, 1,000 Gifts. Have you read that?
Yes, I did.
And, you know, she has you, she created a list of 1,000 gifts and more than 1,000. And she encourages you to make a list to try to reach 1,000 things that you're thankful for. And, you know, I was kind of researching this too, and I found that if you're kind of bored with the whole gratitude list, I heard that you're probably being too lazy about it. You're being too general. Like you said, my house, my husband, our job, all of that. But to really look for the really small things, like the sun coming through this window today, and she has a very poetic way of writing and making you see beauty in just very almost insignificant things,
Right, right.
But don't seasons of difficulty or sickness or strife or loneliness or depression or, just hard things, those cause us to see things differently. When you've been sick, then you realize how much your health means. When you lose your voice, then you realize how good it is to be able to sing again. When the sun doesn't shine, for a long time. And then all of a sudden it does, and you can feel the warmth. Then you realize how thankful you are. And it's unfortunate, but it is the way that we are, when we kind of take advantage of the blessings that we have in our lives, and you don't realize what blessings they are until they've maybe been taken away. To be able to try to stay in a thankful state, or to remember back when things weren't always this way, or you didn't always have a peace of mind about, a certain situation. To be thankful for the good days, knowing that they're not always going to be that way.
I know my mom has told me that recently, like, oh, if I could go back to a time in life, it would be where you are right now.
Really?
Because like you said, you've gotten through a lot of the difficult stuff, but you're healthy. You still, you're just in a really sweet spot. And I think that age changes the way you think about things and see things, changes attitudes. And I'm at the age where I can say life is short, but I'm hopefully not on my deathbed either. You know what I mean? Like right. I can see that now and let it impact the way I do things and think, and still have, hopefully, Lord willing, enough time to implement it.
Right. Right.
I mentioned the Ann Voskamp book. Writing it down does help. I think there's just something about seeing it on paper, and it's something you can refer back to. And another thing is I try to just think more objectively, like, am I blowing this situation up out of proportion? Is it really this bad? Am I taking this too personally? And just trying to see things maybe the way an outsider would see it can help me come to a place of better thinking. And just trying not to compare. And then, periodically I do think, what would my life be if these good things hadn't happened, or if this were gone? I mean, that's a reality check that I don't like to dwell on those things, but that is a good way to kind of help you see what you do have and be grateful for that.
Well, I know that we all can start to feel more gratitude when we get to the age of midlife and even older. But some ages are more difficult than others to feel gratitude. And if you're raising teenagers, you know what I mean. And Mindy, you kind of alluded to this earlier in the podcast with your kids come home and all they can do is list all the things that are wrong and none of the things that are right. So how do you guys think that you go about helping kids and middle schoolers and teenagers develop a feeling of gratitude?
Well, I mentioned earlier, you kind of have to model it and help point it out. I mean, listen to their days, obviously. Sometimes you're going to have a rough day. You don't want to you need to weep with those who weep, but rejoice with those who rejoice. So modeling it, but also there is a practice that we have started doing. Actually, we started when the kids were really little, is we do a thankful tree every November. It starts November 1st and we make leaves. It's come in different fashions. It's looked different ways through the years, but what we do now is I have a skinny Christmas tree that we set up in our kitchen. And so we go ahead and put that tree up November 1st. And it's just the tree with lights. And then we cut out construction paper leaves in brown, red, orange, green, yellow. And we have the leaf cutouts sitting on the table through the month to really whenever write anything that you're thankful for down and hang it on the tree. So by the end of November, it's full of leaves. And then at the end, we take the leaves off and we write the year and we put it in a Ziploc bag and we keep it.
Oh, that's going to be so fun to go back and look at someday, Mindy.
Yes, it's precious to look because all of my kids can spell most words well now. So looking back and seeing, the misspelled words and the sweet little, thankful messages from my little cherubs.
Yes.
Back Do you usually look at last year's, like when you get this year's out?
Yes, like I just went through them at the beginning of the month, and I love, we all look through them and it's just kind of funny. Like there's things in there like I love to burp. And I'm like, that's so our family. There's so many boys in the house. I'm like, that just yes, I remember who wrote that, when it was. And there's things like that. And then there's much deeper things than burping, but
right.
Everything goes on that tree.
Well, and what a concrete way of counting your blessings. You literally are picking up each leaf and physically touching and handling and counting your blessings. And you can look back over the years through those bags and count the blessings.
Right.
Yeah, that's such a neat idea.
That's awesome. Well, that is one of the first things that real simple article says about teaching kids gratitude is that you need to model it. So you need to say good things that you're thankful for and just kind of show them. It's really hard to say, tell me one thing you're thankful for when you get to the Thanksgiving table. All of a sudden their minds draw a complete blank. But like you can model it, or you can be doing that tree, or you can be providing opportunities to be thinking about it even ahead of time. I think something that happens kind of naturally around this time of year is volunteering. Volunteering at food banks, animal shelters, helping your neighbors rake the leaves, whatever. And it's too bad that it's pretty much almost only this time of year that we think about doing a volunteering activity. But those are awesome opportunities for our kids. I think they may not stick in our minds that long, but I think they really do stick in the minds of our kids.
Yeah.
Nothing puts your life in perspective like giving and serving to somebody else. And so that's just one of the best things you can do to get a better perspective about your own life. Like I get tired of praying for my own junk sometimes, it weighs heavy on you. And when you really do take on the needs and the concerns of your friends and of different people, and you start praying for them, it really does put things in perspective.
Yeah. And if you involve your kids in the fact that we're praying for this as a family, and then they see it answered, they remember that too.
Right. That's right.
Yeah. Another idea that they had was taking the big four, education, family, health, shelter, and taking one of those a week and focusing on what you're thankful for about that. And that's kind of breaking it down. Now, even taking the education, I mean, at first kids might be kind of silly about what they're thankful for about school, but if you really start the discussion on what if you couldn't go to school, there are people that never learn to read and write. The nice thing about helping your kids to be more grateful is you start to be more grateful. It's almost like, well, I've got to act grateful for my kids. And it's like fake it till you make it. You do start to feel more grateful yourself.
Yeah, it's true. It is true.
Well, I hope that this discussion has been helpful to listeners. When Julie and I first started talking about this topic, as she said before in our fall favorites, Thanksgiving is not her favorite holiday. But we do recognize that it's important and we want to feel thankful. So that's why we decided to really say, like, how do we actually get there? And it sounds like thinking about this topic really got you there, Julie.
Yes, I was glad that we did this because it forces me to kind of come to some conclusions about how I have been thinking and what I need to do differently.
Yeah, and I hope that if there are any listeners out there listening today that maybe aren't that excited about this time of year, I hope that we've said something to encourage you or something that makes you feel a little bit better. And that's always our goal, and we definitely recognize that there are things in everyone's life that we're struggling to practice gratitude over.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's move on to I'm a Fan. Julie, do you want to start us off? What are you a fan of this week?
Okay, this one's kind of weird, but if you've ever cooked chicken tenders and you see that nasty little tendon in there.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
That just makes me not ever want to eat another chicken tender again. But I have found that you are supposed to remove that. Did you know that?
No, I did not know that.
And most restaurants, they have removed that.
I wonder why theirs always tastes better than mine.
Yeah, that just grosses me out. I'll include a little article on how to do it. And there's even, if you Google it, you can even find YouTube videos on how to remove it.
Oh.
It's kind of hard to explain, but you get a grip on that white, thick tendon, and then you put your knife down below it and pull. You don't move the knife like you're cutting. It's almost like you're skinning a fish, if you've ever done that. And the tendon just pulls right out and leaves it has to be a very sharp knife, but it leaves the tenderloin whole.
Julie, maybe you can make a little video and we'll put it in our Insta stories of how you actually accomplish this. Have David video you doing it.
Okay.
That would be cool.
Yeah, so follow us on Instagram if you want to see it in action. Mindy, what are you a fan of?
I am a huge fan of my Kenra Platinum Dry Shampoo. I went on the search to try to find the best dry shampoo for my hair. Now, it could be different for like blondes or brunettes, but I was using another dry shampoo for a while and I just noticed my hair was was just, I don't know, it was getting tanglier and I didn't like the feel of it even over time. My hairdresser suggested that I try some different ones. I get this at Ulta and it is just my favorite dry shampoo. It gives me another 2 to 3 days before I have to wash my hair again. I like how it smells. I like how it feels. And it has not dried my hair out or changed the texture over time. So I've been using it for probably like 4 months now. And when I go to get my hair done, the hairdresser says it, it feels really good and healthy. So it's been a good product to have.
Oh, that's awesome. So, now that it's cold again, cold is one of my favorite times of year, but
cold and dark.
Yeah, cold and dark. I like to get out and exercise still. I really do not like to exercise inside as far as walking if I don't have to. So one of the things that I like to have for exercise are Cuddl duds. They're like a brand of clothing that you can layer, and they're thin, but they're warm. And I know you can for sure get them at Kohl's, but you can get them other places too. And you spell it Cuddl. So Cuddle, I guess, without an E. Well, this sounds like a great I'm a Fan week. I definitely think that we all make chicken tenders and we all use dry shampoo and we all want to be warm. So
that's right.
And we will have pictures of all this in our stories this week on Instagram. Follow us at Midlife Matters Podcast. And also we will have links to these in our show notes. Thank you to everyone for listening today. We wish everyone a very happy Thanksgiving.
Yes, thank you.
Happy Thanksgiving.
And happy Thanksgiving to you guys. I look forward to hearing about your holiday.
Yes, me too.
All right, we'll talk to you next week.
Sounds great. Bye.
We're so happy you joined us today. If you'd like to help us spread the word about Midlife Matters with one of our free bumper stickers, please email your name and address to midlifematterspodcast@gmail.com. Also, please tell a friend about the show and help them hit the free subscribe button on their favorite podcast app. For links to everything in today's episode, see our show notes at midlifematterspodcast.com or come and follow us on Instagram at Midlife Matters Podcast. That's where we post pictures and stories about all the things we talk about in each episode. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you back here next week.